Where did the saying bored to death, I'm bored to death come from? Because this is a fascinating story, and it ties into how peacock feathers supposedly got all those beautiful marks in it. This is all tied into the same story, and it comes from Greek mythology. And I think it's fascinating. Now, Hera in Greek mythology was Zeus's wife. And Hera had a servant. It was a 100-eyed, googly-eyed servant. And this servant was guarding a tree that was, a cow was tied to this tree. And there's a reason the cow was tied to the tree. It's because Hera would get angry at Zeus, because Zeus was known to come down from the heavens, from Mount Olympus, and sleep with mortal women. And so Hera was always angry at Zeus, because he would come down and hook up with mortal women and make children. So Hera caught Zeus one time hanging out with this beautiful princess, and he knew that she was coming, so he magically turned her into a cow. Now, when Hera got there, she pretended like she didn't know, even though she knew that he had turned her into a cow. She pretended not to, and she said, "Hey, honey, Zeus, I want that cow. Can I have that cow?" And he couldn't say no, because he would be busted. So, of course, he gave it to her. And she knew that the cow was actually his new wife, his new mortal wife, and she was pissed about it. So she tied the cow to a tree, and she had her 100-eyed, googly servant, Argos, watch over the cow. Now, Zeus, he wanted to get his princess back. So he had to ask his little brother, Hermes. Now, Hermes is one of the Olympian gods, okay? And it's one of Zeus's brothers. And Hermes was the sneakiest out of all of the gods, really. He's known to be able to go in between both worlds, the land of the living and the land of the dead. He can go between both. He holds a caduceus, which there's so much symbolism in there. I'll talk about it later. But so Zeus tells his brother Hermes, "Hey, we gotta get back my bride, my mortal bride." And Hermes says, "I'll do it." So Hermes sneaks down as a sheep herder, or like a herder, and he's got this little flute, and he's playing the flute in Argos because he has 100 eyes. He's so bored watching this cow, all of a sudden he hears the music, and his eyes turn, he starts watching this guy playing a flute. So the Hermes sits down. He doesn't know it's Hermes. He's in disguise. He sits down. He's playing the flute. And Argos is paying attention, loving it. And all of a sudden, Hermes, because he's crafty, he starts telling him a story. And he starts dragging it on and just making the most ridiculous story. This story had no beginning. It had no end. It was so boring. It was horrible. And Argos's eyes started shutting one by one. Doot, doot, doot. And then Hermes noticed all his eyes were shut, so he waved his magic caduceus over the eyes, and it shut them all completely. And Argos was bored to death. And that's where that whole thing comes from. It's Greek mythology. Now, Argos, in his beautiful eyes, now Hera was pissed because Hermes killed her amazing, beautiful watcher, okay? So they had an argument, and Hera ended up putting the eyes of her servant on the feathers of the peacock to remember her servant Argos. So every time you see that peacock feather in Greek mythology, those are Argos's eyes. And Argos, again, is Hera's servant creature. And that's the story. That's where it comes from. So a lot of these things, a lot of these words, a lot of these terms come from mythology, come from older stuff. That's why I think it's fascinating. The word horizon comes from Horus, the ancient god of Egypt. Horus rising. Because Horus, like all the other ancient gods, all the gods, it was the sun in the sky. And the sun would rise. And Horus was the sun. And Horus rising. Horizons, where we get words, okay? In Spanish, ours is aorta, aortis, Horus. Comes from Horus, okay? Why ours? Because Horus would walk through the 12 zodiacal signs, your 12 hours, okay? It all comes from the sky, all right? You also have words. I mean, learn words, learn terms. The word church comes from, it's an English word, okay? That word goes back to the word kirk, which is a Scottish word. That word goes to the word Circe, which is a Roman word, and all the way back to the word Circe, which is Greek mythology. And in Greek mythology, Circe was a goddess that would enchant you and hypnotize you into her house. She would sleep with you, turn you into a farm animal, and eat you. And that's where the word church comes from. So when you learn these words and you learn these terms, these phrases, I think it's quite fascinating. You know, even the little, you know, the piles of rocks that you see if you're hiking, those are called cairns, and those actually come from Greek mythology as well. Hermes, this was another instance where Hermes was in an argument, and I actually believe it was over this whole incident with the Argos thing. And they ended up going to court, basically, and they went up back to Olympus, and they went around the gods, and each of them had to tell their side of the story. And how the rule went, whoever told the story that they believed, they would throw rocks at their feet. Okay? So if they believed the story and they were to be excused, and they would throw rocks at their feet. So Hera told her side of the story, and then Hermes proceeded to tell his side of the story. And because Hermes was a slick talker, and he was like, he was a pretty slick god. And Hermes had him cracking up with the story because of the flute and how he put him to sleep. And all the gods were laughing so hard at the story, they started throwing rocks at his feet. And it literally covered him all the way up to his head, the rocks. So they said to Hera, you know what? We're going to let it go. We're letting it go. Hermes got you. He tricked you. He's hilarious. We're letting it go. And that's where that whole idea comes from. So when you see those piles of rocks, those cairns, it's actually supposed to be Hermes, the Greek god, inside of the pile. And you can ask the pile for wisdom and guidance along your trail. So again, so many words, so many terms come from mythology. I highly recommend people learn this stuff. If they want to learn more, you can follow me at my website, withthesun33.com. It's for free. There's so much stuff for free. You can also be a $5 member a month and get access. You can get my phone number. Like, I just had someone text me this morning. I wrote him back a huge message. We're conversating. You can call me, and that's what that gains access to. I'm also putting videos up there. All my books are accessible from there once you become a member. But you don't have to do that. Just go to my website. Get the free information. There's a lot of it on there. I love you all. And see, I just do that to help because I work 60 hours a week. I'm trying to, if I could help show people truth for a living, I would, you know. I try, I really do. I love you all, and I hope to see you at my website. This is all my opinion based on my research.